My name is Leanne Hornsey, and this is my grandfather, George Hornsey. And today I'm interviewing him on being a World War II veteran for my 10th grade history project. So, how are you today?
Oh, I'm fine, Leanne. Nice to have you down here.
It's nice to be here.
Right.
All right, well, I'll start off with asking you a few basic questions.
Okay.
All right. How did you feel your senior year of high school knowing you could and probably would be sent to war?
It was kind of thoughts of the unknown. You didn't know what you were getting into, probably. And I had letters and things from my older brother Ed and Bob, who were in the Army. And Bob was out in the Pacific, and was headed for Europe. He was in the Signal Radio Battalion. Bob was with the Army Engineers, building airfields and things of that nature. So it was kind of a thoughts of the unknown. You don't know what you're getting into until you get there.
Okay, what was the mood of your friends and family during this time?
Oh, they were just like they didn't know what was going on. We didn't have TV then. We didn't have the coverage of things. We used to have to go to the movies to get a newsreels of what happened. And they were usually about a week or two late or something like that. But it was different. It was different. They have a rationing sugar, and you got gas stamps to buy so much gas, so you wouldn't use too much gas. And sugar was for the manufacture of smokeless powder for rifles.
Considering this time, what did you and your friends do for fun?
For fun, we didn't have much time for fun, I don't think. We used to have dances. We went to sorority dances and things like that. Like your grandmother was a member of the Zeta Beta Psi's and all that stuff. And that was one thing we went to. And we went to ball games. It was a big deal in those days to go to St. Louis and go to the Fox Theater and go to the show and maybe have dinner afterwards, so things like that. So that was it.
Okay. Had you decided what military branch you wanted to be in before you graduated?
Kind of, I thought about the Marines several times. I didn't know very much about them. I didn't know much about the Army, and my friends kept telling me, I said, why don't you get in the Marines or the Navy, or all your brothers are in the Army? So maybe that had something to do with it, I don't know, but that's probably why I ended up there.
So there wasn't a specific reason?
There wasn't a specific reason, no.
Okay. What year did you graduate and when did you enter the service?
I graduated from Marquette High School in 1943, and I enlisted in the Marine Corps in November of 1943.
So at this point, the war was already going on?
War was going on, yes. War was going on. It was a defensive battle. We'd started taking the offense in several areas, but there was still basically a defensive deal to a status quo.
So then, did at home people think that the war was almost over? Did you think there was a long way to
No,
go?
they didn't. They knew it wasn't over. They knew there was a lot to go.
Okay. Since you already had other brothers involved in the war, how did your family feel about you going?
Well, Mom and Dad were a little upset that I was going, but it would have only been a matter of time that before I'd have been drafted anyway, because the war was escalating. And, there were several million in service. And anybody that wasn't in service usually was in a defense job at that time, and the whole nation was geared to war time.
So you decided then to enlist instead of
Right.
waiting to be drafted?
I could pick my service that way pretty well.
So if you were drafted, then you were put somewhere?
Yes, they probably in the Army or the Navy. Most of the Marine Corps and the Navy were volunteers.
What was it like the day you left for the Marine Corps?
we left from the federal building in St. Louis. I took the interurban. It was an old-fashioned streetcar like from Alton to St. Louis. I'm trying to think of the name of the one they call it now, the Metrolink. Only there was just about like the Metrolink, only there was one car instead of two cars that took that from Alton to St. Louis. Walked to the federal building where the Marine Corps recruiting station was, and they took us by kind of a van-like affair over to Union Station. We got on a train to leave for San Diego. And it wasn't, they put me in charge of the group. There were 9 of us. And I had the service record books, and I felt real strange being 17 years old in charge of 9 other Marines. And it wasn't until I was on a train and moving west out of St. Louis, I thought to myself, what in the Sam devil have I done? You know, I mean, I'm in, you know.
Oh, when you arrived in San Diego, so then you did feel like you made a big mistake?
I didn't know what I'd done, really. I didn't, everything was new, you know. Then at the railroad station in San Diego, why they met us there, the sergeants and all that stuff there, and they gave us a spiel. They looked you over and to say, boy, are they scraping the bottom of the barrel, you know. What are we having here? They expect us to make Marines out of this, meaning us, you know, so forth and so on. And that was pretty well the mood. You just felt like you had to conform to it, so to speak.
All right. Describe a typical day from the morning to the evening at boot camp.
At boot camp, well, first there was reveille, and that got you up, because if the bugle didn't get you up, somebody would pull you out of bed onto your, or out of your sack, they call it, to the floor, and you got up, you know. And you kind of washed up a little bit, real fast, like, not completely, but you had to report for roll call in formation out in front of your barracks. And they called your name off by alphabet, and with my name being Hornsey, it was H-O-R. I knew that when Hopkins, Hopkins, he was on my right. When his name was called, I was next, so he would clear your throat ahead of time. And you would say, here, sir, you know. And then you would go back to your barracks, and then you would make your bunk up. And it was supposed to be made up in a military manner with a military cutaway of your sheet, and your basic sheet, and your top sheet, and your cover. And then you went and washed up and cleaned up, and you went to the chow hall. Yeah. And there you better feed yourself for the day ahead, because your days were real rigorous, real busy. And then you report for drills or whatever your things were. Your first thing was marching drills in the morning. To right flank, left flank, forward march, the rear march, and all those things. To get you snapped in the military, acceptance of orders, without question, of course. And so forth and so on. Then you would, a lot of times they had practices in the morning, like abandoning ship. They had a fake ship there with a big swimming pool, and you had to jump off a 40-foot ship, you know, making like you were abandoning a ship, but you actually did abandon the ship, because it was just like it. They say, I don't know, I've never abandoned ship, but that was it. And then you would have actual machine gun practice of crawling on towards underneath machine gun fire, and then you would have artillery shooting blanks and things that makes you get you used to the sounds of battle. And then they had hand-to-hand combat sometime with pugil sticks, which I saw in San Diego also when Jim was there. And that hadn't changed a bit there. And and you would go on marches and up and down hills and things like that. And then pretty soon it was time for lunch. That all happened in the morning.
Oh my.
Then you ate lunch, and then things were not a little bit of a repeat of the morning, but they would take you out. You'd walk out to the beach there in San Diego at the boot camp there, which was right across the bay from the Navy boot camp. And they'd get you wet out in the water with your gear, so you'd have to clean your gear up. Just so you'd have to clean your gear up, you know, your packs, things like that. And in those days, it was funny because a lot of people, almost everybody smoked. And they would, every once in a while, you get a break that said the smoking lamp is lit. Said that while you could smoke. The smoking lamp is out. You couldn't smoke. So that was one of the things that went on during that time. And then you ate supper, and they, most of the time after supper, even in boot camp, why, you could talk with your friends or walk around the area or things like that, but you never got any leave during boot camp, anything like that. You remained on the base at all times.
What was the meal like?
They were pretty good. They were pretty good. I'd say food was good in service, really. You always had scrambled eggs for breakfast. You had to get used to that because they didn't have time to cook eggs over easy, things like that.
Were you given as much food as you wanted, or just a
Oh yeah, I think so. Boot camp, yeah. I forgot to tell you, they gave us haircuts too when they got there.
Oh.
They were just about like this almost. Some of the boys, they sat in a chair and said, I'll take a little off the top and do this. And the guy would say, yeah, yeah. And, you know, what are you doing to me? There was nothing you could do about it.
Was there anything that you liked about boot camp?
There was a certain amount of, rigidity to the routine. You knew what was coming. You knew what to expect. And I liked that. I actually liked boot camp because I felt better. I never felt so well in all my life. By the time I got out of boot camp, I could jump over backwards and land on my feet. I mean, they tuned me up. They really did. I'll say that for them.
What did you dislike about boot camp?
It'd have been nice to be able to go to the show or something, but that was boot camp.
How long was boot camp?
If I remember correctly, boot camp, it's longer now, but I think during the war it was 7 weeks.
After boot camp, did you go through other kinds of training, and what did you go through?
Well, during boot camp, there was 2 weeks that we went to the rifle range at Camp Matthews, which is up the coast from San Diego. And there was strictly all rifle range, grenades, anti-tank combat, because you never knew, out in the Pacific, you never knew where you were going to run into tanks or how many tanks you were going to run into. And so many times, what they call tank nets were aboard LSTs, and the Japanese, if they've ever found out they were aboard them, they would sink them so we couldn't get our tanks ashore, because without tank nets, you can't get tanks onto a beach. Without the big heavy mesh netting, you know, because they'll just sink down in the sand and they won't go anywhere. And that rifle range was a nice variation from boot camp, really, but it was kind of fun, you know, in some ways. But that was in between boot camp, and the last 2 weeks boot camp was more or less reiterating what we learned in the first 3 weeks.
So then you felt pretty prepared for any assignment they would give you?
Well, we were tuned up for advanced training, yeah. We weren't ready to go into combat yet.
What was your assignment of duty?
Well, I had several assignments of duty when we got to Camp Pendleton, which is farther up the coast from San Diego, and Oh, I'd say Oceanside, California is where Camp Pendleton is. And it was a huge, big, massive spread. I don't know how many thousand square miles of acres it had, but it's big. It was built off into areas. And I was assigned the 5th Marine Division, which was gathering there. And we kept on with our advanced training, into advanced training. And I was with Company B, and we had, somehow they found out I could type, and they put me in the company office quite often, which I didn't like, because I didn't like office work at that time. I mean, I enjoyed boot camp, but I got out in the field, and we went on a lot of bivouacs, marches. Camp Pendleton's a very good place to train because there's a lot of hills, there's dense foliage back up in the ravines, and also there's a beach there where you can practice landing. And then at Camp Pendleton, they took, after a little while, they took us out and we landed on San Clemente Island, which is out about 20 miles off the coast. And they say San Clemente Island, which is 20 miles off the California coast, is the most bombarded island in the history of the world, because that's where the Navy does all their gunnery practice. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, things like that, you know. And then they brought us back here, and we came back to San Diego, and then back up the coast road to Camp Pendleton.
At this time, what was your rank?
I was PFC there. I made PFC out of boot camp. I was lucky there.
When did you get a chance for leave?
Right out of boot camp. Right out of boot camp. Everybody got to go home for either a 10-day furlough or a 15-day furlough after boot camp. And, excuse me, the dividing line was the Mississippi River, where you got a 10-day leave or a 15-day leave. So some of my friends that I went out with on the train from St. Louis, San Diego, they came back with me. They lived in St. Louis. They got a 10-day furlough. I lived in Alton across the river, and I got a 15-day furlough because of Mississippi being the dividing line.
When did you find out you were going to Iwo Jima?
I didn't find out where we were going. They didn't tell us in those days. We got aboard ship at San Diego and went to the big Hawaii, which is huge, the biggest island of the Hawaiian group. And its major big city is Hilo, Hawaii. And our camp was way up in the hills, about 50 miles from Hilo. And it was on a Santa Margarita ranch. That's the name of the ranch. And it was right between the two big volcanoes, Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea, which are active volcanoes of this date. In fact, Mauna Loa, I think it is, firebombed a lot. Portion of lava came down and got a portion of Hilo not too long ago. So I didn't know. We were there in training, advanced training in Hilo, Hawaii, from August of '44 to I guess we jumped off out of Hilo in December of '44. We went aboard ship in December, the whole division. And we sailed from the big island of Hawaii to the island of Oahu, where Pearl Harbor is. And our convoy, the ships nested inside Pearl Harbor. And it was a gathering place for the invasion fleet of Iwo Jima. And our ship nestled right up next to one of my lifelong friends. I just happened to, you couldn't see all the AKA numbers or APA numbers on the ship. I was looking for it. I thought it was 197 was Joe Burns. He was a friend of mine. He was here last night playing cards, in fact. And so I went over to that one, to about midships, and they were tied together, you know. It's just like you could be on one ship, I could be on another, inside Pearl Harbor. And I asked a sailor across there. I said, hey, you have a pharmacist mate aboard there by the name of Joe Burns. He said, yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I said, tell him there's somebody from Alton up here, So we had a reunion right there.
That was neat.
So it was kind of fun to see him there. And then we were there for about 2 or 3 days. We were there for about 4 days, I think. And then the ship started threading out of Pearl Harbor. And we came out of Pearl Harbor and swung right. They always say at Pearl Harbor that when you came out of Pearl, you turned left, you were going home, stateside. When you were going right, you were going the other way.
Oh.
But we swung right, and our convoy kind of gathered there, and we saw the destroyers and cruisers and carriers there, and they were waiting for us to go first, and they were going to kind of get around us, take care of us, hopefully. And that's when we found out. We said, the Navy, the captain of the ship came on the intercom, and he says, from now on, this is serious business. I said, everything goes. And then he told us we were going to Iwo Jima.
How did you, feel when you knew that you were going there? Was it a serious thing that you?
Well, I didn't know anything about Iwo Jima. I didn't know. I was green. I was 17. I didn't know much about anything, really. And they said that Iwo Jima had to be taken, though. And it was going to be costly. But I didn't know much. I was ignorant, completely ignorant. So we just, every day aboard ship, we took exercises and looked at they had these big build-ups like this of what Iwo Jima was like, and the caves, networks of caves and bunkers, and any update of Japanese equipment, things like that.
What was February 19th, 1945 like for you?
There again, it was different. Before we got there, though, we stopped at Inuit-Talk, and then we stopped at Saipan and Tinian. Saipan and Tinian are right together within 4 miles. We made a practice landing on Tinian, which is about a day and a half sailing from Iwo Jima. And the reason they were taking Iwo Jima was these big B-29s, bombers that the Army Air Force had, could reach Tokyo or anywhere in the Japanese islands. They had a range of 4,000 miles. And Iwo Jima they could let them know they were coming for one thing. And then a lot of times they would, Japanese anti-aircraft batteries, or any hit on a B-29 would knock out their oxygen system. And if they could keep up above 30,000 feet, they could keep away from Japanese fighters, because the Japanese fighter planes at that time were Zeros. They'd conk out 25,000. But when their oxygen system got hit by Japanese batteries over the homeland, they'd have to come down to breathing space of 10 to 12,000 feet, and the Zeros would jump them and allow them to get disabled, and they had to ditch at sea. And so that's why they had to have a landing strip. And that was our job, to get them there. And also to get them landing strips for fighter escorts. Because we were only on Iwo Jima for 4 days. We secured the first airfield, and Seabees got it ready for a fighter plane to come in. But that's the reason we took Iwo Jima right there. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
And you asked the question, what was it like on February 19th?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the seas were a little rough, and if you ate too much, they warned us not to eat too much, because you get sick in those old boats. And then we had church services and all that stuff, and I didn't eat too much because they said not to, and each one of us got a little package of crackers to chew on, suck on, while we were waiting to go in. And when you go into a place or an invasion, your wave circles a control boat like this. There's a control boat in the middle, and you circle that control boat until you get orders. Each control boat probably has about 10 or 12 different waves you might handle, you know. But on that control boat, it was the strangest thing. It was Secretary of the Navy Forrest over on. Everybody saw him, and we just kind of thought, well, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for us. But then that's at what they call line of departure, which is 1,000 yards offshore. And then you go on in, and there's the beach, and there's the boom booms going. And you can see other landing craft have been hit and knocked out. Well, we can see a lot of bodies laying around, Japanese and American. And, that's what it was like.
How did you feel on February 23rd, 1945, when you heard the American flag had been raised on Mount Suribachi?
Well, it looked good. I saw it raised. In fact, there were 3 flags raised. There was one raised, and it got knocked down, and everybody wanted not to raise the flag until the top got secured, until there's no more Japanese alive up there. But they jumped the gun, and they just fought ferociously until we were lucky to beat off all their counterattacks, and the final flag was raised. I think the final flag, I'm not sure of this even, I think it was Admiral Halsey's flag. I think the Admiral wanted his flag to fly up there.
So you were in the area then when this happened?
Oh, yes. I was on the original patrol on Suribachi.
Did you know any of the people who raised the flag?
I knew of them. I knew, the one guy, he was a Mexican, I can't think of his name now. I can't think of his name right now. He's a famous name, though. He died in alcoholic though. I guess it got to him a little bit. It's a shame he did. I can't even think of his name now. That's what happens when you get old. So.
Oh, yeah. How much time did you spend on Iwo Jima?
38 days. Yeah, when we first went into Iwo Jima, it was about 3 miles wide in the widest part, and about 4 miles long in the longest part. And basically, there's a map of Iwo. We were Green Beach 2 right here. That's where we landed. That's Suribachi there. And when we went ashore, our group, the 28th Marines, swung left here, and it was the 28th Marines' job to take Suribachi on the left. And the rest of the division was supposed to split the island in half right there. But this was the first prize right here, the #1 airstrip. And it was very difficult for these people to take the #1 airstrip with all the fire coming from Suribachi, because it was netted with caves. And the Navy would knock out the caves with shelling. And what they would do, they just shove the gun over the side. You'd see the gun go over the side down the mountainside, and then they'd push the dead Japanese out, and they'd roll up another artillery piece, and it starts firing again. So, I mean, I don't know how many they had. I mean, they had a lot of them. But this was the first prize at #1 airstrip, because they wanted to get fighter escorts in as fast as they could from Saipan, or Guam, or Tinian. Those 3 islands were the big bases for the B-29s. And as soon as they took this, the day after they took this, and the CBs leveled it out so they could land there, there were 2 squadrons of Army Air Force fighters came in, long-range fighters. And from then on, they met the B-29s right above Iwo Jima every morning. You'd see the B-29s coming, you'd see the fighter planes right above them.
But you were glad to see it.
Oh yeah, they were too. But those poor guys took a beating. They had to ditch at sea all the time. It was terrible for them, I guess. But that was the first prize there. And then from then on, it was dog eat dog. Everything we did that advanced everything the Japanese fought, got more furious. After Suribachi and the flag being raised, that charged them up to knock us out if they could, you know. And we got up to the second airstrip, and right away they started to try to connect these two. And now the strip that you see where your uncle sent me all those pictures, that beautiful modern strip, it goes right along here, see? Right through here. And that's where they made the strip so the B-29s could make emergency landings on either. But these were tougher and tougher because they knew then after we got the first airstrip, they knew what we were after. They knew they could see the B-29s coming in. And it was kind of a day of celebration for the day the first one came in because it made it look like we were there for a reason, you know. Now the picture that your Uncle Phil's got is the 5th Marine Division cemetery. It's set right there. Did you see that picture Phil's got? Did you get to see that? I guess you haven't yet. He's still got it, I guess, out in. But that's what it is there. And once we got past this part here, these are all rocky ridges. And after we got this third one, which was under construction taken, by then it was a slow bit of just cave after cave after cave. And we didn't take as many chances from there on because our objective was done. We were just after either killing everything up here or surrendering. Nobody surrendered hardly. And because our objective was done from here on, but we had to get rid of this pocket up here because they were furious. And they would come back. They were taking chances. They would be running at you with a grenade, and they would pop the grenade pins out, strap on them, and throw them, try to throw themselves on you, you know, and suicide attacks and things like that. But that's so there it is there, Iwo Jima, 5 miles long, pork chop shape, 2.5 miles wide in the north, Suribachi in the south, Motoyama plateaus in the north. So I said the Marines got 1 of 10 days of pre-invasion naval gunfire, but only got 3. You got what you took from the Navy. What's next?
Let's see. You're okay. What was it like when you left Iwo Jima?
Left Iwo Jima? It was a relief. They were bringing Army troops in and just take care of any snipers. There were about 100 to 200 snipers left. And they were diehards, and it just took a long time to get them, I guess. You might get 1 or 2 a day, but they had so many holes. They had these spider traps they had that they would be in them, and it looked like a rock there, and they'd pull a rock up and shoot at you, you know, and then they'd beat that down. By the time you turned around, you didn't even know, couldn't see where the fire came from. And it was very well defended island. It's a whole network of caves that the Navy could bombard them, the planes could bomb them, and you couldn't hurt them. We'd be down in those caves. But then when the bombardment let up, then we came out of it.
So then you were very relieved to leave Iwo Jima?
Yes. I was very relieved to get on the Army permanent force. They came in, they'd unload them, and then boatload of us and go out to the ship. And we just took all day to do it, but we were glad to get off.
Yeah. Where did the Marine Corps take you after Iwo Jima?
We went back to Hawaii. We were going to go ahead and go on to the Okinawa invasion, but we lost too many men, and there wasn't enough to replace us as an effective fighting force, so we went back to Hawaii to regroup and reform. And actually, what we were doing back on the Big Island then was getting ready for the invasion of Kyushu, which is the southernmost island of Japan, the biggest island of Japan in the south, Kyushu. when they dropped the atomic bomb.
Were you still in the Marine Corps when they bombed Hiroshima?
Yes, still in the big island of Hawaii.
And with Nagasaki, were you still in there?
Same time, yeah.
What was it like when you came home, and when you got home, did you get out of the Marine Corps?
I was lucky. I had they have what they call the point system. If you didn't have so many points, our division was supposed to go to Kyushu, occupation duty. And I had just enough points to go stateside. But then, if you were going stateside, they were going to make you stay and help do some training of replacement forces. Or, if you had another specialty, you could go to Washington, D.C. and work 6 months in the mustering out process of paperwork. So I took that too. So that's how I got out of going to Japan in occupation duty. Because nobody wanted to go to Japan in occupation duty.
Okay. Where's that? Can you see this? Okay. This is your discharge papers.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yep.
From the Marine Corps. Says George William Hornsey Jr., a corporal, is honorably discharged from the 1st Headquarters Battalion Headquarters, U.S. Marine Corps, and from the United States Marine Corps Reserve this 15th day, March 1946. The certificate awards, I can't tell what this says, testimonial of
The certificate is awarded as a testament of fidelity and obedience.
so that's the front one. And then on the back, it just
It's a
says,
service record, yeah.
that's right.
Then there's all these pictures. You're welcome to take these with you, and I can get them anytime. Or next time you're up, or bring them down.
We have a few more questions. You've been seeing on the news about people from World War II going back to Iwo Jima. Would you ever go back if given the chance?
After Philip, your uncle, sent these pictures to me, I guess I wouldn't mind just going there just to see it. But with the thorough job that Philip did, he did an awful lot of work on this. Philip did that. I mean, it was a tremendous amount of work and documentation, and I really appreciate it. In fact, it was at the time I had to go to the hospital. I was having lung surgery when he did this and got it. And first time I saw it, I was kind of groggy because Grandma brought it to the hospital. But he did a tremendous amount, which I really appreciate. But in fact, to really get a picture of Iwo Jima, all these pictures that Philip took on Iwo, and there's a good picture of Philip in there too. I would heartily recommend that your students in your class take a look at it if they're interested in any of this stuff, because some of it's quite good.
And you do have rocks from Iwo Jima?
Yeah, this is a rock from, looks like from number 1 airstrip, or right into that area. Philip got that for me too.
They feel a lot softer than normal.
It was, well, they crushed it up. They're bulldozing things for the airstrip,
And then,
They said the first B-29 that came in landed at Iwo Jima while the Seabees apologized to the Army Air Force and said, we didn't have any concrete, and said, you're doing fine. The Army Air Force did not like to ditch at sea in a big bomber like that.
You have this flag.
Yeah, this flag was raised on Mount Suribachi, yeah. And a pretty neat job of folding it too. Pretty neat job of folding it.
Seeing as you've been involved in a war, how do you feel about our country being involved in foreign affairs?
That's a good question, Leanne. Nobody likes to see any people oppressed. And at the same time, sometimes I think we stick our nose out where it doesn't belong. And there ought to be a way someday, sometime, somewhere where all these things can be worked out through negotiation and not killing.
Going from being a soldier to a parent, how did you feel when your son, who's my father, told you he wanted to join the Marines during the Vietnam War?
Well, I knew that Jim would be in the same boat I was, that pretty soon he'd be drafted. And frankly, I felt better for him being in the Marines because I think the Marines, being a smaller unit like they are, they can give more individual attention to training and things of that nature to prepare you for combat. Because combat's an attitude. You have to do things that you wouldn't ever do anytime else, but you have to have the training so that when you do overcome the first initial fear of going into combat, you can operate and take care of yourself at the same time. Because one of the tragedies of combat is to see one of your friends laying there dead.
How did you feel when you saw my father leave for Vietnam?
I felt I had a tear in my eye.
You felt like when your parents saw
Yeah.
you leave?
Mm-hmm. Just about the same thing. Mm-hmm.
So you were were you confident that you would do everything?
I felt like he would. He's got a good head and shoulders.
All right. Well, that concludes our interview with my grandfather. And thank you very much
And
for
thank
letting
you.
me
I
do this.
enjoyed it.
And we'll see you later.